Hello, everybody. It's the American Doofus Show. I'm your host, Barry Welsh. Devonte from Real Indy News joins us. It's the only independent black-owned media in Indianapolis. And as far as I know, it's the only independent media. But the focus is on the black community. And it's important. Independent media is important, and it's important we highlight it. And it's important because we call it mainstream media, but actually it's corporate media. It's corporate-owned media, and the message is often suppressed or sometimes never even brought to light as far as the news. And the last episode I did was about Lyndon Cameron. And every time a black person gets shot by police, there are a certain segment of the white population that expresses outrage that the police are even questioned in their actions, let alone held accountable. And I just wondered where the outrage was over the shooting of this 13-year-old white boy in Salt Lake City, shot 5 times. I would not have even known about it had a viewer from Salt Lake not made me aware. It wasn't on any media I saw. I went back and it was reported on CNN, but reported once and dropped. So that's why it's important that we have independent media, the live streamers in Louisville, people like Devonte, that take the time to bring the stories to the people, and that's incredibly important. And we are joined by Devonte Scruggs, and I've been wanting to do this for such a long time. I'm such a fan of yours. I watch Real Indy News every time you pop up, as you probably are aware. How and why did Real Indy News begin?
Well, so Real Indy News started back in May of this year. So being honest with you, there is an organization called Real St. Louis News. It's in St. Louis, Missouri. And so they have a Real STL News. So a gentleman came up to me and was like, "Hey, man, you guys, we're doing Real STL News in St. Louis, Missouri. We think you guys should probably, what about Real Indy News?" And he was like, "Listen, it's all yours. You do your thing with it, however y'all want to run it. But I think this is something that you guys should do there." So I said, "Okay." I said, "I've never ran a news organization, a media organization. I knew nothing about journalism." And at the time, the Dre John Reed case had just really opened up. Dre John Reed had got shot and killed by DeJour Mercer. He is a IMPD officer here in Indianapolis. And the city was burning. I think Dre John Reed had got killed a few weeks before that. George Floyd was killed. So there was a lot going on in that short amount of time, and we were still in quarantine for COVID. So it was a lot. And so Real Indy News, we just decided, okay, we're gonna start recording the protests, the demonstrations that were happening downtown Indianapolis. And it started all on May 29th when they started rioting downtown Indianapolis. And I mean, it was a sight to see. So we started recording it, and we had like 5,000 viewers. And we started off with like probably 300 or 400 followers. Those were people who were in my family, who were close to me. And since May 29th, today is September 10th, we're right at we're at 16,600 followers on Facebook, and we're at 1,000 followers on Instagram. So we're right at 17.6 thousand followers across all of our social media platforms. So Real Indy News, listen, we get out in the street, we record what's going on, we're live, we're raw, we're uncut, we're real, we're relevant. We don't play games. We show people what's really going on in the city of Indianapolis, what's going on in their community, because mainstream has failed to do so. Mainstream has failed to tell the story. And so Real Indy News, that's what we about now. That's what we do.
I've referenced Real Indy News a couple of times in episodes. One was the interview, the eyewitness of the Drayshawn Reed, that interview you had. That was awesome. I referenced that, and I referenced the story you had. The man on the moped, the police took him to the ground and then sicked the dog on his neck.
Yeah, in Lafayette, Indiana. Yeah.
Yeah. I referenced both of those stories in my episodes, and you know, police brutality. It's systemic. You know, that's a popular word, but daggone, man, it's a justifiable word.
Yes, it is. When we look at police brutality, just not in the city of Indianapolis, but across our country, you know, I was at, it was Vox. I can't think of his last name, but he was a young man who was almost lynched in
in Bloomington,
Indiana, and there the city's treasurers came and spoke, and she said something. She said racism is not. What did she say? She said racism is not. It's not a pandemic. Racism is not a pandemic. Racism, it's not that. Police brutality is not a pandemic, because a pandemic can end.
Ooh, okay. I was wondering where you were going with that. That's why I chuckled. I'm like, but
a pandemic, you can find a cure to that. An outbreak, you can find a cure to that. And what has transpired over this country's last 200 years is not a pandemic. It is the morals of what this country was built on. And so you can't fix that with one or two solutions, or saying we need to do this, we need to do that. But in order to reverse this police brutality, this systemic racism that we face, it has to become people's priority in the way that they live, which means that everything about you that says that this is okay has to change, because it's not pinpointing one thing that makes this police brutality, this systematic racism a bad thing. It's a multitude of things. And so until we change the whole man, until we deal with the inner issues that causes us to hate one another, and also to hate each other because of the color of our skin, because of how we're built and our different backgrounds, until we deal with that issue, racism is a part of life. It's a part of what goes on in America. It's in the fabric of who we are. And so unless we want that to change, if we want that to change, we got to change the fabric. And so, you know, and I know we're talking about police brutality, but police brutality is a branch from racism.
yes.
Just like oppression is a branch from racism. Just like Jim Crow, it's a branch. All of these different things that are belittling, or that is bad for those who are on the bottom. It comes from this white supremacy thought process that I'm better than the next. I'm sorry, man.
Don't be sorry. This is why I wanted you on here. I've been promoting this, that I've got people, I literally have people in every state. I've got people in Jamaica. I've got people in the Dominican Republic that watch this show. And I wanted them to hear you, and I want them to support Real Indy News. And I think it's important that we have these conversations, because it doesn't happen often enough.
That's it. And you think about it. I see that flag that's behind you, right?
Yeah, I sit in front of the flag because I'm not going to let Republicans, I'm not going to let racists, I'm not going to let people that call themselves patriots, even though all they are is freaking gun nuts. They don't support any amendment except the second one. I'm not going to let them take the flag. I understand. I totally relate and I totally get it that there's reasons for it, and it is substantiated that this flag is offensive to some black people. And I totally get that. That's not why I do it. I do it because I'm not going to let anybody steal it from me.
Yeah. And the meaning of it, the meaning behind it versus what we have in all what's representing our flag are two totally different things. And
absolutely.
I do believe that even though, you know, this country was built on the backs of black folk, that not all white folks is bad folks.
Yeah, we can't, you know, there's too much of that monolithic thinking. All white people are like this, all black people are like this, all Hispanics are like this, all Native Americans are like this, you know, all police are like this. You know, it's tough to find police that aren't, but yeah, we get in that monolithic thinking, and we got to tear that down so the lines of communication can open up.
Man, listen, so let me tell you
in my
this.
opinion.
Let me tell you, and I'm sorry if I'm getting off rail, but I want to go back to the mentality piece, right? So I was covering a story of a gentleman who was shot in his home on the city's west side. And while I was out there covering the story, I was looking for witnesses who were over in the area who might have seen something that could give us some information on what they saw. No lie, man. I walked up to a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a gentleman who's probably about 22 or 23. Walked up to this 12-year-old and this 10-year-old. I said, hey, y'all, did y'all see anything? It was like, yeah. They was like, you know, what transpired over here, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
What transpired over here it happens all the time. And the little boy, 12 years old, he walked up, he said, listen, I tried to tell the officer what happened, but he told me that I was lying. And he says that if what I'm saying has nothing to do with this case, it doesn't matter. So, you know, man, that heated me up. I was hot. I was mad as hell.
Yeah.
So I went to the public information officer who was out there. He was out there. He's the one that gives the media statements. I went up to him and I said, hey, let me talk to you real quick. I said, listen, there was a 12-year-old boy who is depending. Now, let me say this. He's a black boy. He's a 12-year-old black boy, a little 12-year-old black boy. He's depending on you all to protect and serve him, and you failed. Because this little boy came up to one of your officers, shared with him what it is that he saw and what's been going on in this community. And the only thing that this white officer could tell this little black boy who's 12 years old, who's scared in this community because gangs are taking over this community, because thugs are moving in and doing whatever and trying to convince kids to get in gangs or convince kids to start banging and thugging. He's trying to tell you what it is that's going on in this community, and the only thing you can tell him is that he's lying, and whatever he's saying does not have anything to do with this case. And I told him, I said, listen, I said, this little boy is going to be the same little boy 4 or 5 years from now who's going to be over here shooting and killing somebody, because when he tried to trust the police, when he tried to come up and tell the police what was going on, nobody wanted to hear him. And I said, and once again, IMPD, you have failed another black child who was depending on you to make a difference, who was depending on you not to be like any other officer, and the opportunity that you had to show that there are some good cops and that you are really here to protect and serve, you don't take that opportunity. You don't do it. You tell them he's a liar. You tell him what he says doesn't matter. And now he's sitting over here in a community that's killing little boys, scared for his life because he can't even trust the own police. But if it was a white little boy, it'd be a totally different story.
Yeah.
And so when we think about police brutality, it's just not the officer taking his gun out the holster when he shouldn't be and shooting someone 6 times in their back when they're getting in the car. It's just not an officer who has detained someone and put a knee on his neck and kills him and stands on his neck for 8 minutes. It's just not, police brutality is just not when an officer is chasing a young black boy who is running away from him and puts 16 bullets in his back and shoots out his eye. That's not just police brutality. Police brutality at the core is when you're not doing your job to protect and serve these children, to stand up for these children, to listen to these children when they are speaking to you. Because now what has happened, my guy, what has happened now is that now they're growing up not even trusting and believing that anybody is there to protect and serve them, and we are doing them a disservice.
Yeah. And
it's about what police brutality is. It's not hearing the voice of our children. That little boy, he spoke and he spoke up and said something, which people don't do in the black community. Black folks ain't going out and sharing what they saw. And the reason is because of that. They don't believe us anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And to take it a step further, like you said, it's all a branch of racism. Yep. The little boy's not only not going to trust police officers, he's not going to trust white people.
Man, listen.
And it's understandably so.
Yeah. It's tough, man. It's tough.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I said we're not going to be able to solve this all in one night. I hope you'll come back and we'll have this maybe even do this once a week.
I would be honored to come back on the show.
I think people are going to really relate to you, like you, and want to see more of you. I know I sure do, man. I think discussions like this are important.
Most definitely. It's
okay.
It's because, and I'll say this: if this discussion makes you uncomfortable, it's good because it's causing you to acknowledge the very things that you wanted to ignore.
That's what I said.
And I think what's happening is that, you know, there's this lady that works at my father's wife's job. And she said that she was scared of black folks. She's a white lady. She said that she was scared of black folks. And my pops was like, it's not that she's scared of black people. She's just scared that her white privilege won't work anymore. And we're living in a time where the privilege is being challenged and people don't like it. And so I said all that to say, if this conversation is making you uncomfortable or is challenging your privilege, then what it's doing, it is actually getting to that root of you feeling that you're superior or that you're better than someone else, and it's pulling that root up, and it doesn't feel good. It hurts. It's not normal to you. But I'm telling you, once those roots come up and you actually realize what's going on, and you realize the struggle that just not black folks, but brown folks and every immigrant that's come over to this country, the struggles that they go through, the struggle of the minority and the poor folks, when you start to realize what's going on, you'll do more to help, and you'll actually use that privilege that you have, not for benefit of yourself, but for the benefit of somebody else, because that's what we're supposed to do anyway. It's not about what can we do for ourselves, but it's about how we can help our neighbors. So, you know, listen, man, I could go for days. Listen, I could go for days.
I want you to. We will. We will. before we go, because let's try to make this a weekly thing.
Okay.
You and I get together, and we'll try to do this. I know for my viewers, Devonte's got another business that he's part of, as well as running an entire media organization. So he's a very busy man. But we're going to try to coordinate and have and do this once a week. I love this. This is the whole purpose of the show, is to promote equality, freedom, and justice, the things that America are supposed to stand for. And how can the people watching, how can they help Real Indy News? How can they donate? Because I've been doing this for 3 months now myself, and I've made $156. So it's not like you get rich doing this. How can the people help you?
Listen, if you want to be a blessing to Real Indy News, listen, you can give on all of our platforms. You can look us up on PayPal, paypal.me/Real Indy News, RealIndyNews, no spaces. Or you can give on Cash App at $Real Indy News, the same way, RealIndyNews. And you can find all of those different platforms either on our website at www.realindynews.com, or you can find us on Facebook or Instagram at Real Indy News. So make sure you follow us. If you feel like giving, if you can donate, if you can give something, I understand it's a pandemic. Anything that you give is greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated. You can find those on those two platforms.
Awesome. I hope we bring some people to see Real Indy News and see news as it's happening. And before I let you go, Real Chicago News.
Oh, yeah. So Real Chicago News is coming up, y'all. Listen, we've been super busy with Real Indy News. And we said, listen, we got to get Real Chicago News popping. So y'all go ahead and follow the Real Chicago News page. It's going to, listen, y'all think Real Indy News is something. Wait till y'all see Real Chicago. It's going to be off the chain. So please, ma'am, please, sir, if you know somebody that lives in Chicago, tell them, hey, yo, go follow Real Chicago News. They can look it up on Facebook. The page is up and running, but it's not active yet. We haven't started posting or doing stories on it, but that's coming soon. But please go ahead and follow that page.
All right. We'll see you next week, my friend.
Man, listen, we'll see you, man.
I love you.
Love you too, man.
Take care.
Too.
That was